You know, illicit finance has found a really powerful new ally in our digital age. From state-sponsored cybercrime all the way to dark web markets, cryptocurrency has become this key tool for moving and hiding illegal profits. But how exactly is that digital money trail covered up? And what's being done to follow it? Well, we're about to dive deep into this incredibly complex world.
To really wrap our heads around the scale of what we're talking about, we have to start with a number: $350 billion. Now, according to a huge database built from court records and investigative reports, that is the estimated amount of illicit funds that have flowed through crypto-linked laundering schemes. I mean, to put that into perspective for you, that's more than the annual gross domestic product of entire countries like Colombia or Finland. This isn't some niche problem. It's a parallel shadow economy, and it's operating on a global scale.
So, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how this all works. We'll start with a major real-world crime. Then we'll map out the anatomy of a digital laundry. We'll take a look inside crypto mixers, see how criminals cash out on the dark web, check out the legal battlefield over sanctions, and finally, we're going to weigh that fundamental conflict between privacy and security.
To make this all feel real, we need to move beyond these abstract numbers and look at a specific case, a case where a digital theft had massive, real-world consequences. This is really where the story begins.
Okay, so back in 2014, employees at Sony Pictures booted up their computers only to find this chilling image. A group calling itself the Guardians of Peace had completely crippled their network. Now, the US government would later say this sophisticated attack was the work of the Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored cybercrime syndicate working for North Korea. And they didn't just steal data, they caused absolute chaos.
The total damage was just staggering. The costs of the investigation, fixing everything, the business disruption, it all added up to well over $150 million. And this brings up the most crucial question. After a digital heist this big, how do you actually use the money? Right? You can't just deposit millions in stolen digital assets into a bank account. You have to make it look clean. You have to launder it.
And to understand how they do it, we need to look at the fundamental framework of money laundering. It's a model that's been around for decades, but it's been perfectly adapted for the crypto age. So this is it, the classic three-phase model. Think of it like a triangle. At each corner, you have a distinct stage: placement, layering, and integration. Just about every sophisticated money laundering operation, doesn't matter if it's using suitcases full of cash or strings of code, follows this basic pattern.
All right, let's break this down. Placement, that's step one, getting the dirty money into the system. In the old days, that meant making small cash deposits into a bunch of different bank accounts. In crypto, it might mean buying cryptocurrency with illicit cash. Next up is layering. Now this is the most complex part. This is the washing machine cycle. The whole goal here is to create a confusing, convoluted trail of transactions to separate the money from its criminal source. And finally, there's integration. This is where the now clean money re-enters the legitimate economy, maybe as a real estate purchase, a business investment, or some luxury good.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this slide maps modern crypto techniques onto that classic model. See how things like using exchanges or cash-to-crypto services, those fall under placement. And techniques like using a privacy coin like Monero or using false identities, that's classic layering. And then methods like cash out or making funds appear legitimate, well, that's all about integration. It just brilliantly shows how these timeless criminal principles are being applied with cutting-edge tech.
The most critical part of this whole process is the layering, making the money untraceable. And for that, sophisticated criminals turn to a specific, very powerful tool. So let's take a look inside this digital whirlpool known as a crypto mixer.
So, what even is a crypto mixer? Well, at its core, it's a service designed to break the chain of traceability that's built into many blockchains like Bitcoin. Think of it like a financial blender. You put your identifiable crypto in, which has a clear transaction history, and it gets all mixed up with crypto from countless other sources, both legit and not so legit. The process itself is deceptively simple. First, a user sends their crypto to an address that the mixer controls. Second, those funds get thrown into a massive pool, a digital haystack, along with everyone else's money. Third, after a bit of a delay, the user withdraws the same amount they put in, but it's paid out from a completely different address using different coins from that same pool. The link between what went in and what came out is severed. It makes a forensic analysis incredibly difficult.
And the prime example of this tech in action is Tornado Cash.
In 2022, the U.S. Treasury officially sanctioned the service, and their reason? They stated it had been used to launder over $455 million for the very same group behind the Sony hack, the Lazarus Group. That's nearly $500 million for a single criminal entity, all clean through just one service. This really highlights why these mixers have become ground zero in the fight against digital crime.
So, once the money has been layered and its origins are obscured, the final challenge is still there: integration. How do criminals turn that clean crypto back into usable cash without raising a ton of red flags? Well, for answers, researchers look to the dark web.
What you're looking at is a screenshot from a community on a dark web forum called Dread. It's called /d/laundromat. And its stated purpose is to discuss, educate, and share experiences in international money laundering, tax evasion, and anonymous crypto. It's right here, in these forums, that users are openly trading tips and strategies for that final phase of the process.
So what are they actually talking about? Well, the main goal is to avoid getting caught. One of the key techniques is called smurfing, cashing out small amounts, usually under a few $1,000s, to fly below the radar of the automatic reporting systems that banks and exchanges use. They also advise swapping to privacy-focused coins like Monero, which has anonymity built in, and using different withdrawal addresses, and randomizing the timing and the amounts to avoid creating any kind of detectable pattern.
And this just shows the sheer creativity involved. To create a legitimate paper trail, users suggest things like creating fake invoices for services and then paying those invoices with the laundered crypto. They talk about setting up shell companies like consulting agencies just to funnel the money through. Some of them even discuss these bizarrely modern methods like minting an NFT and then selling it to themselves with the dirty funds, or even using crypto to buy physical casino chips, which can then be cashed out as legitimate winnings.
This explosion in new techniques has inevitably led to a massive legal and regulatory response. The battle is no longer just between investigators and criminals, it's now being fought in the courts over the very nature of code itself.
This whole thing is perfectly illustrated by the Tornado Cash saga. In August 2022, the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, took this unprecedented step of sanctioning the entire service. But then, in a stunning reversal in late 2024, an appellate court ruled that the Treasury had overstepped its authority, and by March 2025, the sanctions were officially lifted.
So what was the legal argument? It's a fascinating and absolutely crucial point for the future of tech regulation. The court found that Tornado Cash, at its core, is a set of immutable smart contracts. It's self-executing code that runs on a blockchain without any direct human control. The plaintiff successfully argued that you can't sanction a piece of code in the same way you can sanction a person, or a company, or a piece of property. The law just wasn't written for this kind of autonomous technology. Now, the reversal of the Tornado Cash sanctions didn't end the debate. Not at all. In fact, it threw the core conflict into even sharper relief, forcing all of us to confront a fundamental question at the heart of our digital society.
And that is the tension between financial privacy and national security. On one hand, you have advocates who argue that tools like mixers are essential for privacy in an increasingly surveilled world. They're protecting an individual's right to control their own financial data. But on the other hand, governments and law enforcement agencies argue that these exact same tools provide a critical shield for terrorists, for rogue states, and for cybercriminals to fund their operations, making them a direct threat to national security. And this issue is far from settled. While the sanctions against the tool itself were lifted, the legal battle over the creator's responsibility is still going. The upcoming criminal trial of Roman Storm, one of Tornado Cash's developers, is going to be a major test case. It's asking a pivotal question. Can you hold a developer criminally liable for writing code that is later used by others for illegal purposes?
And this leaves us with a central, unresolved dilemma: the technology to create perfect financial anonymity. It already exists, but as we've seen, that very same technology can be used to wash hundreds of millions of dollars for state-sponsored hackers and other criminals. So the ultimate question we're all left to grapple with is this: in a digital world, where do we draw the line? Where does the right to privacy end and the need for security begin?
So while markets rise and fall, systems like this quietly move billions behind the scenes, hidden from the public, hidden from scrutiny, and sometimes hidden from the law itself. Because in global finance, the most powerful forces are rarely the most visible. And this is just one of the systems used by the unseen elite.